Hi, this is Marla Phillips. I'm Director of Xavier Health at Xavier University, and I wanted to share with you a couple of new tools that have been issued, one being the APEC Supply Chain Security Toolkit that was released this summer in 2017, but with 21 different regulators, including FDA, which actually is the regulatory authority that led the project, and the good supply practices, which we led through Xavier University with the pharmaceutical industry, the medical device industry, and the FDA. Although the work is separate, I wanted to present both of these to you because they really go hand in hand. So APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, has 21 different countries in it, including the United States, which you can see down there at number 20. The United States joined in 1989, so APEC is not new, even though the work they just released this summer on the Supply Chain Security Toolkit is. So the toolkit, when you go to the website, if you were to Google the APEC Supply Chain Security Toolkit, it'll pull up a wheel like this. And all of the different spokes on here are clickable. And when you do click on them, it has resources that you can use to help with your supply chain. And so some of these are pretty familiar, the GMPs, GDPs, GIPs, as you go around the spokes, and then over to the left, track and trace. So a lot of different tools that you need to operate your supply chain. And this is good for, I guess, the organizations that are running the supply chains as well as suppliers, because don't forget that you have suppliers. So just an amazing toolkit that is very practical. And when you click on any one of these, I'll just show you one. If we were to click on the good manufacturing practices, what pops up is a screen like this. And it's very similar for all of the different points around that wheel, where there's a brief description as well as kind of how each of the different types of stakeholders can use the information. And then down below, there's boxes that are, again, clickable. When you click on them, a lot of them have slide decks that the regulators have put together to kind of walk through what that particular aspect is all about, how it can be used, and what some expectations are. Some of those even have flow charts and other tools that you can use to implement what the expectations are. So very comprehensive and user-friendly type of toolkit. And so when you look at this, the Supply Chain Security Toolkit, one thing that became apparent to me is that good supply practices are missing. So again, you have GMPs, GDPs, GIPs. What about GSPs? And the reason I just show it here is just to kind of show how it really does fit in with what we have here. And so I want to show you that the work we've developed, again, through Xavier with pharma, device, and FDA is very similar. It's very useful, practical, commensurate with the need, and can help you develop your supply chain or assess the supply chain you have in place already. So looking at that, the good supply practices we developed with a very intentional approach to designing your supply chain. So we refer to it as supply by design. And I'd like to share with you some of the big findings and the key aspects of that work. So again, if we look at this with the end in mind, if you have GMPs, GIPs, GDPs, we feel that GSPs really help complete that picture of GX and give you an increased confidence in your overall product quality. Now, one of the big paradigm shifts that we uncovered, which is the basis for all of our work, is that when we came together in 2012, we assumed that we were going to come up with a way to certify our suppliers to, I guess, ensure that we have the right fit for our supply chain. But instead of jumping to the solution, we took a look at root cause. And when we did that, we had the pharma and the device industries, along with FDA, do a gap analysis. We put the information in a cause and effect matrix, Pareto analysis, and presented the information back to the manufacturers. And what their own data showed was, my gosh, we are causing the problems. Now, that's kind of a blunt way to put it, but it's either we are inducing risk into our own processes, we're circumventing our processes, or we could have prevented the issues that we are experiencing. So the neat aspect about this is it's action provoking. Now that we have a root cause, we can actually develop solutions that will move the needle instead of just creating busy work. So the thing that I love about all of this is we actually developed 3 brand new concepts that emerged from the work. And I mentioned one already, and that's the supply by design concept. And I'll go into all of these in just a few minutes. The other one is self-qualification. If we are causing the problems or could have prevented problems, then how qualified are we to be in the relationship? We're really good at doing supplier qualification, but now we need to look at self-qualification. And then the third concept that we developed is relationship risk. If you look at the supplier risk that you come up with through your qualification process, your self-risk that you come up with your qualification process, both of those have very useful information. However, it isn't until you overlay the two to understand where perhaps both you and your supplier are weak that exposes vulnerability that you might not have realized you had, and then vice versa, where you're both strong and everything in between. So the relationship risk really helps you make decisions about which supplier is the best fit for you for that product at that moment, as well as where your vulnerabilities might be. So when we look at these, as I mentioned, supply by design, it's an intentional design of your supply chain, which is a great match with quality by design. You put a lot of effort into designing your product with the right quality, and then we tend to just toss it out into the supply chain that happened to be created somehow. But by designing a supply chain for that product and understanding yourself, you have integrated risk reduction that carries the product quality from beginning to end, from development through product on the market. So supply by design has been just a fantastic way for us to look at how can we develop these supply chain solutions for people to implement. So the basis for the work that we do in developing any of the solutions, or I'm sorry, in using any of the solutions, is having cross-functional alignment. How often are you in a group where you feel that your involvement was either missed or it was involved after the deal was already signed, so it was really too late? So imagine a solution where we have a spreadsheet with all the functional areas going down the left-hand column. And the one example I have shown here is environmental health and safety. The next column shows what that functional group needs to understand about the supplier before you choose them. And then also what in the next column, what that functional group can contribute to your supplier selection process. So, you know, one reason why I really like environmental health and safety is when I was in quality, you know, I often didn't think of environmental health and safety as being able to contribute to this process. But imagine choosing a supplier through your typical risk analysis, and you're completely blind to the fact that that particular supplier is about to be shut down for stack emission violations. So you'd have signed the deal, you'd have been trying to launch a product, and here they would have been shut down for something that was completely off of your radar. So then the next column asks the cross-functional group to approach groups that might not have been involved before to ask if they feel they've been involved at the right time or if their involvement has been missed. And then the last column is for you to score 0, 3, 7, or 10, what the likelihood is of involving that cross-functional member going forward. And again, this is not you in a box. This is you working with a cross-functional team and aligning around what's the best decision for your company at that moment for that product. So cross-functional alignment, once you have that, then you can look at the risks that you are using to assess the various suppliers. And we have 4 different categories. And here's just a couple of examples from a category that's supplier, product, and process technical capability. And so, for example, do that specific technical expertise, process capabilities, and experience? Or down below, do they have the ability to handle hazardous materials? Do you have familiarity with the equipment that they're using? So with that cross-functional team, you score 0, 3, 7, or 10, how important any one of these questions is so that you understand what you need to look for when you go and assess the supplier. So then you would look at your supplier and say, does the supplier fit your need? So it's a great way to drive the dialogue and to make sure that you're not, I guess, omitting questions that really are going to be key to your success. So now, as I mentioned, you would use this to identify the appropriate risk for the suppliers and then find the appropriate need. But now on the flip side of that is, you know, the self-risk. So again, there's the same 4 categories, different questions though. This one is related to product and process technical capability. The first one just asks, you know, do you have data to support the process capability ranges that you have in your operations area, as well as your product specification ranges? And so again, 0, 3, 7, or 10. And you go through all the questions and you find out where your weaknesses are. So if you're weak and you don't have the data to support what you have, first of all, you can maybe go design some studies to get that. In the meantime, you might be looking for suppliers who have strong technical capability to match your weakness. But after you have the self-qualification, along with the example that I just gave, you then take a look at the relationship risk. So in this example, if your score is in red from your self-qualification, what this shows is the 4 different categories. The one on the bottom shows that, okay, maybe you're a little bit weak in your quality and regulatory compliance, because the higher the number, the better you are. So in this particular case, it's pretty low for quality and regulatory compliance. However, you have strong product and process technical capability, your operating and business systems are about mid-range. Relationship alignment is pretty low. Some of the questions in relationship alignment relate to your ability to forecast the product, so you are able to respect the business of your supplier. So you're kind of weak on that. And that's just one of the questions in that category. So then you start looking at your suppliers, and you're looking to select a supplier, and the blue supplier, supplier 1, shows, man, they're very strong in quality and regulatory compliance. And that's typically where we focus. So you might have selected them, and you're off and running. But if you look at the other categories, they are also strong in product and process technical capability, a little bit weaker in their operating systems and business capability, but their relationship alignment is very weak. And relationship alignment for the supplier includes things like flexibility and capacity. So if you do not have a strong ability to forecast and they're not flexible and have capacity, you might have a supplier that has fantastic compliance, but you're not going to have product on the market. So then you might look at another supplier. So the green supplier, not so strong in quality and regulatory compliance, pretty good with the technical capability, business systems are okay, relationship alignment is a lot stronger. So now, just fictitious, you might say, you know what, we are going to select supplier 2, but we're going to select them recognizing that we have to invest in their people, their processes, their equipment, so that we can help bolster their compliance and also maybe have man in the plant. But now you're going to have product on the market and be able to mitigate their weak areas. So again, totally fictitious, but what you can see is that it I guess, encourages a dialogue that is definitely not happening, and it gives you granularity to the relationship that helps identify vulnerabilities and reduce your overall risk. So we're very passionate about this work that we've developed with the Good Supply Practices. I think this, along with the tools that came out with the APEC Supply Chain Security Toolkit, really give you a great way to look at your supply chain and make sure that you are assessing it and developing it intentionally. If you are interested in taking our solutions for a test drive, we are running feasibility studies, so feel free to contact me. We can then set up an opportunity to do a web meeting with you to go over the solutions with you, hand you the documents and the scoring sheets, and you can do as many or as few as you want. And all of this is free open access for anyone who wants to use it. So thank you for listening. Good luck with the development of your supply chains and managing them throughout the life cycle. It's definitely a big challenge, and I can just hope that we can support you in any way that we can. Thanks a lot and have a great day.